Hello, Stacy. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Roger. How are you?
Good, dear. Thank you. Can you introduce yourself, please, to the audience?
My name's Stacey Warwick. I'm the head of English here at Runcorn High. I'm also the head of languages as well. I've been teaching for almost 20 years. I teach English, and I used to be a history teacher, but now I've become the head of Department of English. I don't get to teach history anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. So you are teaching English currently?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Stacey, you know the importance of writing, and as it's one of the major skills in English, and students are being assessed on their according to their writing abilities. And I noticed from our observations in the Australian schools here in Brisbane that teal and peel are two writing techniques which are applied widely here. Can you tell us, please, about teal, which is a strategy used in Runcorn High School?
Ever since I've been at Runcorn, which is about 8 years now, we've always used the teal structure. I believe it's been in the school for a very long time. The teal structure is used in a majority of subjects and covers a majority of different writing types. And the importance of teal is to give the students something, I guess it's like a foundation or almost like a skeleton that they can work from. Because a lot of our students aren't writers, they also aren't readers, so they're not necessarily being exposed to good writing in their daily lives, apart from when we have the expectation in school that they can read and therefore write as well.
Yes.
So the teal structure for us is all about creating that foundation where they can build on from there. And obviously, over time, from grade 7 through to grade 12, we continually reinforce the teal structure and try and get students to constantly build up. I guess it's almost like a snowball effect. They start small with the teal.
Yeah.
They'll write a topic sentence. They might elaborate a little bit. They may provide some evidence. And the link or the concluding sentence at the end, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But over time, we just continue to reinforce the teal structure, and the students get used to writing, and then they write a little bit more, and we explain a little bit more, and they write a little bit more. So over the course of a year, and then subsequent years as they head through high school, the idea is that this becomes second nature to them.
Yeah.
I might say to a student, obviously you need to write this in a teal paragraph, and they know exactly what at least the minimum requirements are.
Was it 8 years? I mean
6 years. Oh, sorry, I've been here 8 years, but 6 years over the course of grade 7 to grade 12. Some of our grade 7s come in to high school and they've told us that they've used teal or versions of teal in primary school as well. Because there are a few different versions of the acronym. But generally we'll say, look, we use teal, but it's the same sort of principle. And they can use that in English, they can use it in humanities, they can use it in science, they can use it in HPE, business, whatever the subject might be.
So you answered one of my questions, which was, is it flexible to use the strategy of teal?
Definitely, and I think that's why it has been adopted, not just by our school, but obviously a lot of schools around Queensland, is that it is flexible. So I can come into an English classroom and ask them to write an analytical essay, and obviously following that teal structure, they can go into science and they can use it as well. Or their HPE teacher might say, all right, you need to construct this in a teal paragraph format. So it's that consistent language that we use. Obviously the context, the subject is changing a little bit depending on what subject they're in, but at least they've got those building blocks, and they don't have to sit there and go, I don't know how to write this, I don't know what to write, because they know that they have to write a topic sentence. And I often suggest to my students, and I'm sure lots of teachers do, that sometimes the easiest way to write a topic sentence is to have a look at the statement or the question you're being asked.
Exactly.
So, for example, in a history subject, it might be, what were the causes of World War I? So then we take the what off the beginning of the sentence and say, you know, the causes of World War One were, or there were many causes of World War One, and at least they've got, again, a basic structure of a topic sentence. Then what do you have to do? Well, you have to elaborate. So you might say there were 3 main causes of World War One. So what are those 3 causes? Just basically identify them. And then you give evidence. So what's the evidence, and obviously building on from there. So I could go into a science classroom. I might not necessarily know a lot about the subject, but for example, it might be the life cycle of a plant, and you know, you might talk about different factors that impact upon the life cycle of a plant. So what's your topic sentence, and you know, what's your elaborations? What is your evidence? So the theory behind it is that it's almost like practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
No matter what subject you're in, you practice this approach, and at least you're getting the basics of good writing. Yeah.
So it's a technique that can be applied with many subjects, and
Yes.
this indicates its flexibility.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, can you tell us about this acronym, Stacey? Can you just explain what is TEAL? What do we mean by TEAL paragraph?
TEAL basically stands, the T is for topic sentence, the first E is about elaborating, the second E is about evidence, providing evidence, because that's a key thing that students often forget about, is what evidence is there. So we might be analysing a novel, and we might be talking about a character. So the student might identify a character that they're going to elaborate on, but where's the evidence? So they will quote from page 56 of the novel to say this is, you know, the character is a strong silent type, and they find a quote that provides the evidence that says the characters are a strong silent type, for example. And then the L is a linking sentence. Now, with the L, it could be that it links on to the next paragraph if it's an essay, so they'll provide a linking sentence into the next paragraph, or if it's just a standalone paragraph we're asking students to write, then their linking sentence should link back to the topic sentence to round everything out. And you will see different versions of TEAL. There are some that have extra E's in there that might ask for more evidence or more elaboration or more examples, those sorts of things. And there's different ways you can structure it. Sometimes a student might provide, say, 3 reasons for, again, World War One, and they might elaborate, then provide evidence, elaborate 2, provide evidence 2, that sort of thing. So there's different ways you can sort of construct it within the structure of the paragraph. But ultimately, again, I will say to a student, read through your paragraph. Has it got everything it needs? And if they can identify, yes, this is my topic, yes, these are my elaborations, I've identified 3, I'm expected to identify 3, that sort of thing, and provide the evidence. They can actually do a lot more drafting for themselves. They can proofread and edit their own work, because they might look at it and go, oh, I haven't really provided much evidence. Well, go back and do it. And they know what they need to do.
I noticed they are doing the editing by themselves.
They are.
But because they have certain steps to follow, so that makes the editing more easier.
It does, It's almost like a formula or just a process. Often with the younger students, I'll say, look, if you were in a food studies class, you'd be following a recipe. It's almost like following a recipe. Have I done this? Yes, tick, tick. You know, it's kind of, have I put the eggs in? Have I put the milk in? That sort of thing. So it's a similar sort of process, because we do struggle in teaching English as a language, partly because we don't have readers, or partly because often students find the text that we do challenging. Not that they're necessarily out of their scope of ability to understand, but we have to teach them the skills to help them understand it and appreciate things a little bit more. So I often try and put things like TEAL into a bit of context for the student. Like, if you were in a food studies class and you were making fried rice, for example, you'd follow the recipe. If you were in a workshop and you were making a biscuit tin or something like that, you'd follow, you know, the recipe. If you were playing sport, you'd learn the rules. What do I need to do? to play basketball or tennis or whatever. So trying to take the mystique out of reading and writing for the students in an English classroom and just say it's a recipe, and hopefully through using Teal, building on vocabulary and a whole heap of other things, choosing the right text for students to study, choosing the right type of assessment for students to do, it might engage them a little bit more in their writing.
All right, now have you noticed, Stacey, any positive effects on both teachers and students after this experience of applying Teal?
I think for teachers it's actually really good because we are all on the same page.
Yeah.
Students aren't coming in going, oh, I don't know what you're talking about because Mr. So-and-so down the road or down the end of the hallway teaches it differently. So we know that when we speak a common language, if the students hear it regularly enough, it's going to sink in eventually. So I think that's powerful for teachers because we know we can walk in and go, right, we're writing Teal paragraphs today, and it's just about then the content. It might be the curriculum, whatever the curriculum is being covered in that particular subject. So that's good for us. I think it's also good when we get teachers who haven't been at the school and can come in and they will be familiar with Teal or Peel or Teak or whatever other versions there are, but we'll say, oh look, we need a Teal paragraph written, and they go, no problem, because it's I guess a strategy and a process that's universally, well, at least Queensland-wide, it's familiar to people. So for teachers it's powerful. I think for students it's that consistency of expectations, that they know that they don't have to learn a million different little things. They've got a couple of main things. We often talk about students having a toolbox of writing strategies or of reading strategies to help them overcome some of the difficulties they might have with reading and writing. So Teal gives them a very positive and I think fairly easy strategy to follow. And as I said before, we've got students coming into high school in year 7. They're about 12 years of age.
Yeah.
They've done this in primary school, so they might have had 2 or 3 years experience.
You mean they did the Teal?
When they were younger, yeah. Again, it might depend on which school they're coming from, but a lot of them are familiar with the concept. So then they don't balk, or they don't sort of say, oh, I can't do this, because you go through the structure and they go, okay, I understand this. I think it's pretty straightforward for students to understand, and certainly what we try and do here is model it. So I might show my class a version of a paragraph I'd prepared earlier, but then we joint construct one on the board together and we go, what's our topic sentence, or what's our topic, therefore what can our topic sentence be? We might do some brainstorming, so that will be our elaborations. Where do we get our evidence from? It might be from a poem or a novel or a newspaper article or whatever the case may be. And I think when they can see a teacher do the process, or you get some of the students come up and they'll do the writing and the thinking, you get a lot more engagement, and you get some of the students who struggle a little bit, I think, feel more empowered that they can do it. Yeah. They look at what's going on and think, oh, okay, it's not as hard as I thought it was. I guess the big challenge in many ways is then to take it up to the next level and get them to think about, well, what else could you include there? And that's where at least you've got the basics of it. They've got a correct sentence. Okay, how can we make it sound better? So we think about vocabulary choices. Could you use a simile here, or maybe turn that into a rhetorical question? So Teal gives you that ability to make the writing even better. Yeah. But that's still a bit of a challenge for us.
It has a path, it has a way for the students to write and follow.
Definitely, because they know they've got the basic structure right. Yes. They know they're answering the question. So they've got, tick, tick, we're on the right track. Okay, so find a better word for said, or find a better word for happy. You know, could you do this? Could you turn that into a complex sentence? What's a conjunction you could use? So you start having richer conversations because you don't have to worry about the structure.
Of the writing. Yeah. So we you mean that you finished with the basics of the TEAL structure and students are grasping it. Now you go to the following step, which is the vocab, the structure of the sentence. So you go to the details in the stage.
That's right.
Which is nice.
And so the more we can do that, obviously over the course of a number of years in high school, hopefully we'll get really good writers by the time they're grade 11 and 12.
You will get the good writers.
Yes. that's the plan.
Okay, Stacey, now is there any difference between TEAL paragraph and PEAL? Because I've noticed in another school in Brisbane, they apply PEAL. So can you tell us about the differences?
I think it might just depend on what the school decided to adopt at the time. I know there are a few schools around that do PEAL. Yeah. Often the students come from primary schools. A lot of primary schools seem to do PEAL. It's just a difference between the T for us standing as the topic and the P standing for what's your point basically. Yeah. I have also seen like peak and teak. So instead of the L at the end, there's a C, but the C stands for concluding sentence or conclusion. So I think they're all looking at the same thing. They're all trying to do the same thing. Because we probably have seen too many students over the years that don't write topic sentences. Suddenly they just launch into writing something and what's your point? Why are you writing this? What's your topic? That sort of thing. So my understanding is there's no difference. Yeah. It's all trying to direct students to make sure they're identifying what they're talking about first before they then elaborate and provide the evidence and either link or conclude it at the end.
Thank you, Stacey. If there is something you want to add, please, you can.
All I can say is that in the last couple of years in particular, since we've been using TEAL very consistently across many subjects, and also sort of doing joint constructions with students, showing them how to put it together, I think that's quite powerful, watching a teacher stand back and go, "Ooh, I'm not too keen on that word," or "What have I forgotten here?" or "How could I make that better?" Has certainly improved the writing of our students. They're less resistant to writing. There's still a few, obviously, that will struggle. Sure. But I think overall we have the bulk of students going, you know what, I can at least do the basics. And I think it's been worth us taking a consistent whole school approach with this type of writing.
Good to hear that. Thank you, Stacey.
Thanks,
Thank you so much for giving me some of your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you.